So, didn't think I'd be talking about Fortune and Kiwi Farm in the same video, but then again, if you talk about Fortune, you're going to talk about Kiwi Farm. Fortune and Kiwi Farm are suing UK regulation after refusing to comply with the Online Safety Act. They rejected fine and argued that the new law shouldn't be enforced on U.S. company. The lawsuit was filed in the U.S. federal court after Fortune publicly refused to pay a $26,000 fine and daily penalty. This is interesting. This is actually quite interesting. That two of the most big shit posting websites on the internet, 4chan and Kiwi Farm, were getting hit. Now I've known about this for a bit of time, or I knew about the safety law in the United Kingdom, and a lot of people have rightfully criticized the law for a number of reasons. Now, for me personally, as somebody who ventures a lot into 4chan and spent a lot of time, right, really don't care too much about Kiwi Farm because I always found Kiwi Farm to not be my cup of tea. But nevertheless, I would say that it is, in my eyes, interesting that both 4chan and Kiwi are now suing the United States, the UK safety regulation because they refuse to pay the fine, and that they believe that they should not be hit by the United Kingdom because they are a US based company or US based organization. 4chan and Kiwi Farm has filed a lawsuit in the US federal court challenging the UK new Online Safety Act, which required age verification for user accessing certain content. So, if you're not aware, 4chan has many boards, both non-safety boards, as essentially anything that's sexual and pornographic, or things that are just bizarre and kind of get violent. And Kiwi Farm is more like a gossiping website, I guess, where there's a lot of information about locales and people of that caliber. Now, again, I don't really spend a lot of time on Kiwi Farm. I think I only in total spent maybe a good less than 5 hours of my whole life on Kiwi Farm, maybe even less than that. But I spent a lot of hours on 4chan, so. As somebody who spent a lot of hours on 4chan and really grew up with the 4chan, its community, I would say that if anything, it is known for being edgy. Right. According to a 404 media, both sides argue that the U.S. base with no operation in the UK and claim that the law amount to foreign censorship. The complaint refers to Ofcom, the UK communication regulation, as an industry-funded global censorship bureau, and says that the action infringes on U.S. Constitution protection. So essentially, they're going to use the Constitution as a way to get out of this. But I think that's kind of fair, especially if you're a person who advocates for free speech. And I do think that I've been very critical on the UK censorship law, because I know that even if you wanted to say we should censor this stuff because of kids, perfectly fine, but it always goes further. There's always more detail, right? They say the devil's in the detail, right? Always read the small fine print, and this is very true when it's coming to censorship law like this. The cases follow Ocom investigations of 4chan early this year. On August 13, the regulation issued a provisional notice that saying that the site violated the Online Safety Act and set fines at $26,000 per day for non-compliance. 4chan responded by rejecting the fine and ultimately filed a lawsuit against Ocom. The Online Safety Act background. The UK Online Safety Act came into effect in July 2025, introducing mandatory age check for content such as imitating content, self-harm forum, and other restricted material. Platform that failed to comply can be fined or blocked by internet service provider. Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, when you go to places like 4chan, you can't really deny that, 4chan does have a problem with that, because it sort of is the last bastion. But it's interesting to say that, because at one point 4chan was completely down at the website, and I think that's really end of the article. Privacy advocates include the Electric Frontier Foundation have raised concern that the law poses risk to free expression and could expose users to data privacy issues. But 4chan and Kiwi Farm said they intend to fight Ocom enforcement in UK court rather than implementing the new requirement. Essentially, in the case of Kiwi Farm, I can't remember the Nola, right? Nola, who is the current owner of Kiwi Farm, is a big advocate of free speech and freedom of expression. He is a known advocate for it. So in the case of kiwifarm, it makes sense. Now, the guy who owns 4chan, who originally owned 2channel, interesting history in and itself, I believe he's in Japan unless he moved to the U.S. not too long ago. I don't remember. I haven't really paid attention to the owner of 4chan, really since the original owner, who I can't remember his name. I know what he looks like, but I can't remember the name of the original 4chan owner. I don't know why, but I think that good on them for fighting this, because let's not deny that the UK court and really UK censorship is so brutal and so aggressive to the point where it feels like a choking feeling of expression and freedom. Um, and I think a lot of the time when people pass certain laws that may seem good on paper, like, yeah, maybe we should censor websites for kids, it always goes so far. And a lot of the time, and when these websites or organizations do enforce laws, it's done so poorly, it's done so crappy, to the point where it isn't even worth passing that law anyway. And I think I can go on and on about this issue, right? About how UK censorship laws are brutal and aggressive, and really, like, regardless of politics, it's extremely totalitarian. Even if in concept, like, oh yeah, maybe I can see the benefit of this, right? Maybe passing a law that can, um, passing a law that can benefit by protecting kids, but that's never the case, and it goes to such an extreme, right, where everything needs to be censored. I mean, I know down the line we may see an explosion of expression, but at the same time, that repressiveness that people have to hold in for so long may eventually explode. That's how I feel sometimes. Now, in the case of 4chan and kiwifarm fighting this, again, good on them, but we don't know how far this will go, and depending on the U.S., maybe under Trump, maybe they'll get lucky and that the UK will have to back off when it comes to US companies. Or, worst case scenario, the UK just completely block any American company that is not willing to comply. Unless they're a big company like YouTube or Facebook or stuff like that. But we'll have to wait and see the results of this. Till next time, God bless.